Hey Buns, so we're just gonna go straight into it now. I'm not gonna bother with an intro, we'll just go straight to the design work. And we'll start with the sketching. So this is the first character in the portfolio that I've done no design work for. I have the idea for what they're gonna be and who they're gonna be, but I have not drawn or sketched them before. I almost always start traditionally with my sketches, and I'll show a bit of that later. I actually recorded some of it. I'm reluctant to do that for the future though, because the recording's pretty mediocre. My camera's not that great, the lighting's not very good. I don't know, if people like it, I will continue it. I do think it's fun to see the traditional sketching though. How I start all this off is just trying to get a general idea for what the character looks like. Just basic sketch things, and I'll usually shift into more like character portrayals, things that they're doing. Just get some kind of idea down before I go down too much into the details. It's really more about capturing who they are in these initial sketches. As for who this is the previous character's father, Holly's father. I really tried to keep the face being something that she had gotten from him, so it's a very round, very young looking face, and I realized he's meant to be a dad, he's meant to be a little older now at this point. So I stuck the beard on there to kind of help that situation, while still trying to keep the similarities between their faces kind of there. I also enjoy doing these little like proportion size charts for the character. It's not really a chart, it's just get an idea of the character's build, kind of their shape. As you maybe notice, he's missing his arm, which has to do with the cloak that I've sort of put on the side. He's very much meant to have a mysterious part to his past, though he doesn't try and show it. He's definitely hiding something. It's the implication, at least. But on the outside, I definitely had in mind that, your fat, goofy uncle vibe. Though he definitely knows how to carry himself, there's a sense of regality to him that is hidden underneath more plain clothing outside of that sort of uniquely shaped cloak. Or cape, technically. So this is the traditional sketching stuff that I was doing. I do a lot of this, by the way. There's like a lot of other images I do that I'm not showing here, that is just traditional sketching to try things out. I just thought it was nice to show this, and so you're not only seeing the invisible hand time-lapsing, so you can see what I'm actually doing whenever I do those. Not a whole lot else to say here, but this is the first time I started drawing out the cloak because it has an emblem on it. You can't see it because he always wears it inside out to hide the emblem, but this is the first time I tried to draw out the cloak and I realized I don't know what the shape of a cloak is. I've never drawn a cloak before, or a cape, or whatever. So I just drew, I just kind of thought it was a rectangle or a square, which is a little silly in retrospect, but this is actually what it looks like. This is the actual shape that I ended up sketching, because I just looked up what cloaks look like. This is the whole making sure you're checking reference whenever you're designing things so it actually looks real and not fake. Not much else to say here other than the fact that I ended up going with a vest. I wanted to display the fact that he's trying to be dressed more normally, even though it's clear from his past that he was used to more decadence involved, which is where the cloak comes from. So I ended up doing what is kind of like a fancier looking vest. Looks very much like a merchant in a sense, which makes sense for someone who had money. So before I go over the final piece, I want to look over the thumbnail, sort of the ideas I had leading up to it, because the illustration really has to bring that character across. You have to be able to see it and be like, oh, okay, I have an idea for who this is. So he's the kind of person who wants to understand the world. He's very much a scholarly individual who goes out, finds things, figures things out, and studies them. He has his own kind of little workshop. So I had the scene in my head where it would be him studying some kind of ethereal crystals, trying to figure them out. But he'd also have his daughter in there that's just kind of curious and looking around. to really illustrate the two facets of his who he is, right? He's both a father and a scholar. So I did a bunch of these thumbnails. This one in particular, I really liked the silhouette for him. So this is kind of the one I end up using. But you can kind of see in a lot of these where Halik is reaching across the table trying to sneak the stein that he has while he's engrossed with his work. I really want to get across the sense of story in these. So the main purpose for the thumbnailing is not just the composition, it's also, you know, what am I trying to say? What is this picture trying to get across? And these little story bits really help sell that, and sell the design, and sell the characters. So on the bottom left here, this little peeking bunny right here, I found super adorable, so I wanted to make sure I mixed that into the final image. It's what I settled on instead of her trying to like sneak the mug, just because it's super cute looking. And sometimes with these thumbnails, that happens as well. You get these nice little tidbits that you didn't really think about, but you're just trying to throw out ideas, and it really helps. Same with all the cluttered stuff in here. I was really just trying to rack my brain coming up with things that might be in the workshop, from like tools to like candles and bookshelves and weird equipment on the desk along with the paperwork. Again, all this is just to flesh out the design, flesh out the character, make it very clear who this is. Alright, so we move on to the final design, most of which I have to say about it I've said in the previous design video. So rather than retread on that ground, I'll talk about something else that I think is just as important, while I skip through in the background with the time lapse of me creating the final image. And that important thing is the fact that this video is 2 months late, as you could probably tell with upload times. And I could come around and make an excuse that, well, it's a busy holiday season, or I was sick for a portion of that, or Season of Discovery launched and I was sucked into that. But it's just a problem of poor planning, time management, and execution of any kind of scheduling that I really should be doing. And I think it's very simple to just say that's something you're supposed to learn in high school. Like, that's how you get homework done, right? Is you plan out your time after school to get things done. But I've grown up with autism. I have Asperger's. It's not called Asperger's anymore, but I still use the term. It's a better quantifier than just vaguely describing it as high functioning, right? And that is to say, as a learning disability, my executive functioning is very poor, and my skills developed in that regard are also very poor. And I'm not bringing all this up as an excuse. I want people to empathize with this, specifically artists, new artists, that have problems with these very things, right? With motivation, or planning, or time management, or just what are very normal things that it's perfectly fine to be bad at. Because making a mistake is the first step towards actually improving on something. You know, as an artist, you make hundreds of terrible, terrible drawings. You have to fail at those things because you're not going to get better unless you recognize the things that you're doing wrong. And these videos are about making that mistake, recognizing it, trying to correct it, and doing something better for the future, for both the production and the planning of this artwork. So this segment is the recognition that I've had this problem. So what am I going to do about it? Well, as content creators will often mention, they have this feeling or this kind of threat that they always need to be creating something, that if they're not, they're wasting their time on anything they're doing. And I thought that pressure would really hold me to the schedule. Clearly doesn't. So instead, I'm going to apply a very rigid schedule to myself for times that I'm going to be waking up, working out, taking a shower, walking the dogs, eating food, schedule out my entire day and function off of a proper work schedule. All of which may sound excessive to one person or perfectly sound to another. But for the past decade, I've had a 9-to-5 job that I've gone to, worked, and when I came home and sat at my computer, my brain completely shut off of work. I was no longer working. So all of a sudden, turning my computer into a workstation is a very big change. The working from home suits a lot of people. It's just not something I'm used to right now. So I need to make some drastic measures to fix the situation. And this all comes back to the art as well, and design, is that You try and create something isn't quite fitting. You look at reference, you look at solutions, you look at ways that you can solve the problem, and then you apply those ways, hope it fixes the problem. More problems arise, more mistakes happen. Repeat the process. It's fine if you feel shame. It's fine if you feel like you're too old to be unable to do this, because we're all just specialized idiots, and there's a magnificent kind of catharsis in being able to laugh at your own stupidity. So that's pretty much the end here. Maybe not the smartest idea to leave the sketch work around the colored piece just as a sketch rather than coloring the whole thing, but I really like how it looks. And since this is my portfolio, I'm gonna leave that in. I probably could have done more important callouts as well. I think the little clasp takes up too much space there. I might change that, but either way, I like how this ended up being. I really appreciate everybody who's watched all the way through the video. It really does mean a lot to me, especially if you've come back after what was far too long of a hiatus. The next design should be pretty interesting because I'm doing the tavern itself. It won't just be another character design. I realize that I should be trying out different things since this is my first portfolio. Maybe I shouldn't be so gung-ho on one thing when maybe I'll really enjoy doing creature work or, prop design or object design, right? And now is the main opportunity to try these different things before I get into the weeds. So yeah, thanks for watching. Buns out.